Hello everyone, welcome to our next Thrinchie. So we've done, what Thrinchie are we up to? We've done 40, we've done Thrinchie 41. So this is Thrinchie 42 and I want something that will coordinate beautifully with this page here. So Thrinchie number 42, we'll move the book out of the way because I'll end up splashing things everywhere. So I'm going to start with the Alpha Florals stamp set. We're a little low on stock on these, but I've ordered some more and they should be here on the 30th. So let's grab our acrylic block. And I'm going to use this little oblong rectangle here that you can put your sentiments inside, etc. And let's use, yes, we better use black, hadn't we? So I'm going to use the black. So I'm using Nocturne ink. And I'm going to add one sort of a little bit smaller down here, like so. And don't forget, they don't always have to be complicated ideas. Let's just clean that up just so we don't have that everywhere. Then I'm going to take another one. And I'm going to make that, oh, nice and wet, here it is. And I'm going to make that a little bit taller. So around about there, like so. So they can be nice, simple ideas. There you go. Or you can just miss your stamping completely. So let's just, there we go. So Tracy just didn't press hard enough. There you go. So we've now got our rectangle and our two pieces there. Do I want a third piece? Yes, I do. I knew I was going to do that. So let's stamp again. So it's easier to ink the whole thing because you can't judge which bit you're going to miss. So you may as well ink the whole thing. So I'm going to add this one just a little bit lower down. And this time I've actually remembered to stamp and put a little bit of pressure on. Just feeling a bit pathetic there. Right. And then I'm going to grab, do I need T32 anymore? Don't know. I'm going to grab the Poppies stamp set. So TE39. So let's take TE39. I'm going to grab the little stamp here. Can you see this very small stamp just here and this little one here? So I'm going to grab, because sometimes on some stamp sets we use the small ones and on other stamp sets we forget the small ones. So let's just grab this. And then I'm going to use my Sand Dune ink. Do you know, we never had this colour in the VersaFine Claire, and now I'm using it constantly. Can't help myself. So I'm going to take the Sand Dune and I'm just going to do the flower head. I'm not going to use the stem. So let's add that there. So I'm going to have these like little test tube vases. So we can have this one here, like so. So it's great. You can just have some really cute, simple ideas. So let's have that one going off there like that. That's it. So that's the little one on the TE39. And then we've got an even smaller one here. So we're going to use that one. Use that little tiny one. So I'm going to add one. Tracy can't make her mind up. There. And then we'll use it again on there. Do you like how I can't make my mind up? So I've got an odd number of flowers there because it's just, I just find it quite appealing. Okay, so let's pop that out of the way. And what I can do now is bring in my, oh no, not my micron pen, I want my pencils. So I want to colour the poppies in the red because I want it to coordinate with my previous page. So I want it to coordinate with that so it works really nicely. So let's have, which one do you want, Tracy? And let's have the poppy red. And as you can see, they're not particularly sharp. Let's give them a sharpen. So I'm just giving them a little bit of a sharpen just so they're a little bit easier to use. And just remember when you're sharpening, turn your sharpener, not your pencil. That puts less pressure on your pencils. There we go. So the colours that I'm using are Poppy Red 922, my mid colour Crimson Red 924, and one I can't pick up, Tuscan Red 937, which is my darkest colour. Not that you can tell I use these pencils very much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the stem just down into my vase and just bring that into there. And then I'm going to just add a little bit of that dark colour just at the base of my floral. So let's just add that at the base. So just gently adding a little layer of that pigment. And what I mean by pigment, that is the waxy layer, because these are waxy pencils, and that's the pigment that we refer to. I'm going to just add, I've got some colour on there, but I'm just going to add a little bit of black to my stems just to give a little bit more definition. So I'm not sort of covering up the whole waxy colour that I added. I'm just adding a little bit of that black. There we go. That's just a micron pen. I'm then coming in with my Crimson Red. Spot the colour that I use quite a bit. Using that circular motion, I'm just coming in very gently. And you can see I don't use a precise science, as in a quarter of this and a quarter, I just go by eye. And I just colour the way that makes me happy. I'm not a professional, but I'm happy colouring, and that's the main thing, that we just enjoy what we're doing and that we're pleased with our results. So then I'm going to come in with the Poppy Red. I was just speaking to Lucy, who's on my design team, and we were just talking about poppies, and there are so many colours. And I was saying to Lucy, there's even a grey one. There's a grey poppy. I actually ordered some, and they're absolutely beautiful. I think they're more of sort of an annual, and hopefully they seed, but they're just beautiful. And poppies come in so many colours. It's amazing. It's surprising, really. You forget. There we go. But look out for a card from Lucy soon. She's done a beautiful poppy card. So let's come in and just add another layer. So I'm gently laying down that pigment just so there's another layer. And sometimes you'll see me come a little bit further up because I've suddenly decided, no, there's not enough dark on there. So I'll come a little bit further up. And it smooths out quite nicely. So I'll come into, I always keep the pencils in order. I think that's just my little brain that it works better. And I tend to then pick up the right colours because trust me, I spend a lot of time getting so engrossed in what I'm doing and I pick up the wrong colour. I do it with the ink pad, but you know, don't speak too soon. I've not done that for a while. Things are looking up. My brain's actually working for a change. So then we're going to go to the poppy red and we'll just add our lighter colour. Now, in the previous video, I showed you how you can emboss and then you can actually smudge the colour of the waxy colour into the background a little bit. If you don't want to have that smudge, just remember, don't sort of wipe over with your fingers over the waxy layer because it just takes a little bit of time before you know, you're not moving it. So we're just going over with our poppy red, and the poppy red we come into the other colours and just blend that. Isn't it lovely though how you can stamp in your sand dune and then you can have any colour you wish, which is just wonderful. So we'll then come in with a little bit more of that darker colour, and again, because I've not pressed too hard, I can come in with a little bit more of that pigment. So let's come to the crimson red. Just to add the crimson red. And we all work in different ways. Everybody who's demonstrating. So you just have to take from the demonstrations what works for you. Not everything works for everybody. So I'm coming in with that poppy red now. I'm coming in down into all the layers. Just so I've got a little bit of a blend there. There we go. And I can let those now rest a little bit. So we can put the sand dune away. And we'll just grab our grey. So we'll just grab our hickory smoke so we can add a little bit of colour to our background. Let's move these all out of the way. We'll bring in my acrylic block, which sometimes I use as a paint palette. I'll just grab a little bit of water. We can just pick this up, and I'm using the Pink Frog Super Smooth, and I've got these on site that are cut to this 3 inches for our Thrinchies. Let's take a little bit of that moisture off because we end up with too much moisture. That's better. So just coming in with our grey. Let's pick up a little bit more of that colour just so it's a little bit darker right next to that floral. And then I can pick up a little bit of the water and then just blend that out a little bit. So we'll pick up the grey once again. And what this grey does, it just makes everything pop. And I sort of scrub at that until the colour blends out and there's almost nothing left. Let's remember inside there. So when the colour starts to get pale, I want it quite dark, a little bit of water. I want it quite dark next to the actual pieces, and then I can blend that out. A little bit of water, and then we can blend this out. So right where my pretend vases are, I'm going quite dark, just because then it really stands out when it's dark right at the edge. So the minute you lose the concentration, you know, it fades out. Come in with a little more. Let's come in. But you can see instantly that you add that little bit of grey, things start to pop a little bit more. If you can see my hair blowing in the sort of the screen, that's because I've got the fan on and I'm too humid, that's why. So I've got my little fan on. Well, it's not a little fan, it's a stand. It stands up onto the floor fan. So it blows quite strongly, but it's reasonably quiet, which is what I like. Let's add a little bit more of that hickory smoke, just so we've got a little bit of a darker layer. There we go, just to the edge, because it just stands out a little bit more. And then you can take that tinted water and you can just blend that out with the hint of a tinted water, and it just blends that out. But you can see with that grey, it just makes everything pop a little bit more. So we've got a base of a colour down, and what I'm going to do then is I can go around with my Inktense grey pencil, and this is going to be a little bit stronger in that colour, so it'll just stand out a little bit more. So I'll just pick a little bit more water up. Did I actually pick any water up then? And we can just blend that out a little bit more. So we can add a little bit more using the grey Inktense pencil, and we can just blend this out just so that it's a little bit darker around that edge. And what we can do is we can add a little bit just under our florals. So let's go under the florals with that Inktense, just in a little V at the base of the flower. I can pick up the tinted water, and you can see I just touch that on my hand or on the kitchen towel, just so that it doesn't flood the area. And my brush is not soaking wet, so I can just add a little bit of that shade just underneath those florals. And if you want, you can go back in and still add another layer of your grey if it's not quite dark enough in any area. So it's entirely up to you. I'm quite happy with that. So let's just give this a clean. There we go, and we'll move that out of the way. And then, oh, why did I do that? I knew I was going to do that. What I can do, well, add the grey again, and I've got a little bit of water in, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of sort of a hint of a tint, tiny bit of water. So I'm just picking up a hint of a tint just to add a little bit of a level of pretend fluid in there. But quite loosely, it doesn't have to be too sort of regimented. Shall we clean it again? We'll try again, eh? Then I'm going to use so we can move that out of the way. So I can't tidying up as I go along. Miracles. I'm then going to use another of my favourite colours in the VersaFine Clair, which is the Morning Mist. And I'm going to use, now can you guess, TE11. It's always right by me. Let me just place that back. So we'll just use the grey ink pad, and I'm just going to sort of tilt it, just so it sort of touches a little bit of the stamp. And then I'm just going to add little touches of text. Oh, that's lovely. So I'm just going to tilt that and just use the edge to add some little touches of text. And I don't squish it down, I just use my finger, and it just adds a little touch of text for me, which is lovely. Just tilt that up like so, and then we can just add a little bit of text, and that is perfect. Don't need any more. And the only reason I wiped that is just so that I don't pick up an inky stamp, because then I end up with the ink all over my fingers. There we go. I just love it. Nice sort of simple idea, but I really love that. Just a very simple idea. Whoops. So I'm going to take the word poppy from the stamp set, and you're just going to bear with me while I just faff a bit and decide what I want there, or do I want it there. Now we're going to add, not with a H, add the poppy, just going up the side there. I just like things to look a little bit different every time I do them. So I'm going to add the little poppy there. And even though it's a very basic sort of text stamp, I still give that a little bit of time just to make an impression on there. And you can see I've used the Morning Mist so that it's not too in your face. Now, do I want to add another one? And then that can go in black. So that's in grey. Yep. Again, I often talk to myself. It's just what I do. I suppose doing a video, I'm talking to myself. So we'll just add the poppy just here. And again, because I've got that oxide ink on there, you see that I'm taking my time. There we go. Just lovely. And I'm not going to add any shading underneath. It's just so it's just sort of part of the whole design. Now we need a piece of copier paper. And we're going to add, whoa, I nearly fell over this chair. We're going to add our black edging. So let's add our black edging to our Thrinchie. Again, I know lots of you have a selection all done in preparation. we go. So just add that faux black mat like this. And it just looks a little more finished when we add our black mat. Obviously, if you add this faux black mat beforehand, then you won't make any mistakes. It'll all be done and you've not made any mistakes on your project. Just so you can see. I'm then going to take my Posca paint pen. Now you have to remember that you need to use what you're happy using. Now Posca paint pen will pick up the waxy layer. So I use Prismacolor pencils a lot, so you just have to be aware that this picks up that waxy layer. So let's just, so I've just cleaned off the Posca pen and that works really nicely. It's all clean now. Let's add a little bit of white just down the stem a little bit, little touch of that white here and there. And then I want to add some splatters, but I'm just going to use this little one because the splatters are a little bit smaller. But make sure that you get your pen working, and what I mean by that is just press it onto a piece of card, and what you want to do is just sort of make sure that the paint is flowing, because then the splatters are much more simplified. You're not sort of hurting your wrist or anything else whilst you're flicking that paint on there. Let's dry that. I've tidied this craft room up about 100 times. And the reason I'm drying that is there's moisture in that Posca paint pen. So with the moisture going onto the grey, it'll pick up some of the grey colour. So if I dry it, the sooner I dry it, the less moisture's on there for a longer period of time. Let's just turn that over just so it flattens. There we go. Just so that you can see those. Just really nice. So then, which one do I want to use? I'm going to use probably the stamp I've just put back, which is TE12 I want this time. So if we grab TE12, you can see on TE12, look how well used that is. We've got these little birdies. So let's bring that stamp out. And I actually sort of cut my birds away from the stamp set. You don't have to do that, but I did that because I like to cram as much as possible on the stamp. But let me just see. There we go. Do I want you on top of the poppy? So I'm going to take this little bird. I'm just going to ink the bird. And you can just tilt your stamp and you can check you've got some ink on there. I'm just going to sort of, my head's going to go in camera a little bit. But you can always check that there's plenty of ink on there because you can see the stamp shining with the moisture from the ink pad. So we'll just give that a little bit of time just to absorb onto the surface of that card. There we go. So we've got our little bird then coming in there. Let's bring in our book. And you can see this complements this page. And it's just a different idea. And if you wanted to do this on a card and you wanted larger poppies, well, you know that I've got a larger poppies in the whole range. So let's add this to our Thrinchie book. go. The problem is I've got a fan on and the fan's blowing, which dries everything a little bit quicker. But I'm sorry, I need to be cool. There we go. Let's just add. Now imagine that on a card. You could do a tall, slim card, and you could just add one of these with one floral, and it'd be very classy. And what I love is you can take from these Thrinchies to create a journal page, a card, whatever you want. It just gives you a little idea, which I just love. So there we go, a nice simple idea for our next Thrinchie. So I hope you've enjoyed that and you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.